Welcome to another episode of Band Director Bootcamp, the podcast with productivity and wellness tips for busy band directors. I'm Lesley Moffat, and I'm really grateful to be sharing this platform with you. As busy band directors, we know you don't have time to sit and watch lengthy professional development webinars, so we share 20-minute tidbits with takeaways you can use to support you with professional longevity and a healthier life. And I've got somebody here today who's going to share this awesome tool to really help with productivity. And I'm super excited. Can you tell? Sorry, I get too excited at the beginning here. Chris Kaatz is with me. I was stalking him because I saw this and I'm like, hey, I've seen your product. I really want you to come and talk to my audience. He's the assistant director of bands at Stephen F. Austin State University there in Texas. Was DMI instructor at Music for All Summer Symposium and is taught at Smith Calbridge Clinics and Modern Day Catholic High School. He did his undergrad at MSU, some graduate work at the University of Missouri in Kansas City. I can speak.
You got it.
Yes, and did the doctorate at Northwestern. And he's also one of the creators and the brains behind the Cue Rehearsal Techniques App. And that's what I saw, and that's what I brought him here to talk about today. So thanks for being here, Chris.
Thank you, Lesley. I'm excited to be on the podcast and to be talking with you a little bit and hopefully sharing some stuff that will help some people out.
Yes. And most of you come here because you're looking. A lot of people who I used to work with would be like, I'd love to take care of my health and be healthier and feel better. And I just don't have time. And so that's why we've talked about productivity, because if you can be more productive, you can have more time for other things. And so what Chris is going to talk about with us today, he's going to talk about what he's created that's helped him and countless other teachers. And he's a professor with music ed majors. So lots of people that are using this app, and it's giving them much more effective rehearsals, helping ensembles make faster progress. It saves time, frustration, and stress. And it's gotten his students and lots of other students to take more personal accountability with practicing and in rehearsals because they learn how to do it. Not just, hey, you need to practice and tell me how many minutes you did. There's a plan. And when there's a plan, there's progress.
Yes.
So he's done the hard work for us. And so we're going to pick his brain and the like, but you don't just run out and create something just unless there's like a real big need for it. So, give us a little bit of your background so that we know like what led you to doing all this. Then we'll talk about what that is.
Yeah, absolutely, Lesley. So I teach, a big part of what I do at Stephen F. Austin State University is I teach music ed majors. I teach a 2-semester conducting class. I teach one of the concert bands. I work with both of the athletic bands. I observe student teachers as their field supervisors. So I come in 3-4 times this semester and kind of debrief with them after watching a teaching interval and chat with them. And I'm about to enter year 7 at the university. And the big thing that I got into university teaching to do was to shape future music teachers, to kind of help them start a few yard lines further down the field than I did when I came out of school. So a big thing that I saw with them as they were developing was, especially in Texas, we got really great musicians. They had tons of technique. They understood the mechanics of how to navigate all of the pedagogy and all these sorts of things. But so they come in and they've got a lot of really good stuff going on when they come in to the university. But I felt like they were kind of struggling towards the end of their degree to figure out how to bring all of that stuff together and effectively rehearse. And for anybody that's gone through a music degree, I think you feel like most of the time you're just building fundamental skills. I mean, the first 2 years, it's like you got to do your oral skills and your history classes and your ear training and your theory and like all these other things. And, clarinet methods is like a flash in the pan. And then you're like, oh, shoot, you get out and you're teaching clarinet players. And you're like, I got to dig through my notes. So I think my students were having a hard time kind of having objective things to hold on to as sort of a schematic to operate inside of when they were rehearsing. So they would just get up in front of the ensembles and like the end of the conducting class when they would do a rehearsal project, or I'd see them in their student teaching, and I could see the gears in their brain catching, like they knew something was wrong, but they weren't sure what it was. And they definitely weren't sure what was causing it. And they had, very limited tools to fix it. Mm. So what I started doing is I was trying to, I was throwing a lot of stuff out to students and classes to see what would stick. And eventually I started circling around this idea of like, okay, there are about 6 aspects of musicianship that we can kind of focus in on and listen to. And then with the different types of instruments, like wind instruments, for example, there's about 5 categories that all aspects of their technique will fall under. And so if you kind of figure out, okay, which part of the music is most in need of attention, let's say it's something about phrasing, you can kind of zero in there, and then you can ask yourself what part of the technique is going to affect the phrasing. And then that you kind of go after that part of it. And then what this app does that we've created is it gives you some specific rehearsal techniques that isolate that particular part of technique that you believe is the root of the problem to specifically enhance the aspect of musicianship that you're focusing on. So I think it, like what I noticed with the music ed students when I would present this to them, they're like, okay, all right, that makes sense. Like now I kind of have something that I can hold on to and figure out. And I can operate through this. This gives me a path forward. And so I think that's, especially like young teachers who don't have a lot of reps on the box, that was a really good approach. And so that started working, and I started having some success with that. And then one of my former students and I, we submitted this, present at TMEA, got accepted, presented this concept, had a lot of really positive feedback about it. And then one of my other former students, he has a background in tech because he worked at a Fortune 100 tech company for a few years, decided this is cool, but I want to go back and do music as a career, came to SFA, got a music ed degree. And then he went out, and after seeing the TMEA presentation, he was like, hey, we should, I think you could turn this into an app. And I was like, that's exactly kind of what I was thinking. So I just don't know how to do it. He's like, well, I do, because I can program. So we built the app, we presented at Midwest this past December, and then we've launched the app and been really happy that it's been helping some people. So it's a great tool. I'm really proud of it, and we're excited that it's in people's hands and helping them help their students get better, most importantly.
Gosh, my undergrad days were decades and decades ago. But I remember that you'd learn all the techniques and all of the things in the classroom and all of that. But when you're on the podium, it's so different. You have to think on your feet, and it can be too much. And we didn't, you could say to somebody, go up and just focus on this, but you really help them narrow in there. And if the tone is a problem, they can, basically push on there that tone's a problem, and find some solutions for that. And part of my first book is about how to be successful at doing things, and it's being mindful of things. And what you're doing for your app is, let's just be mindful of a piece of the puzzle, not the whole big thing right now, and fixing those things, because otherwise, it can be so overwhelming, because a lot of things could be going wrong and you just don't know where to pick it up and what to do. So I really liked that about your app when I was looking around, is how specific it got with specific suggestions. If they were having trouble with pitch or intonation, I think it said in some things, whether it was whistling or trying different vowel shapes and having them do things, just super concrete, real things that they could do right in the moment. And that benefits the student teacher or the music teacher, and it benefits the kids in the class. So I see so many upsides to this. And,
great.
Yeah. And I was blown away. What kind of feedback do you get from people about this?
So a friend of mine, David Roth, he teaches out in Cobb County, Georgia. And he was telling me that he came to the Midwest presentation. He's like, this is awesome. I'm having all our student teachers download this. And I talked with him last week about it. And he was saying that what he'll do with the student teachers that come into his school district is that they'll sit down almost every day and talk through some stuff. And they use the Cue app as a tool. Be like, okay, like this band is struggling with this stuff and you're rehearsing this piece, what sorts of things can you do to help them with this? And he was talking about how it's really good for those younger teachers. It helps them build their toolkit a lot faster. Because I think most of us in the field, if you've been teaching 5, 10 plus years, you've probably done a lot of trial and error, and especially your first few years, it's probably a lot more error than it is success. And my whole goal with the app was to give people a bigger toolkit right away. And one of the student teachers that I was observing this past fall, we were kind of talking about ways to effectively rehearse. And without me even saying anything, he's like, oh, yeah, this is just like the Cue app. Oh, yeah, this is just like the Cue app. And I've used this in rehearsal. It's given me a bunch of really good ideas. And I think sometimes, too, what people have said is helpful about it is that it maybe reminds them of oh, right, that trick. I forgot that you can do that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they have to have learned a lot of that in the first place. But it's in the moment, when can I get that information and recall?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's, so easy to you go and watch the Allstate clinicians at TMEA, and you'll see them do some stuff. And you're like, oh man, that's so great. I'm going to use that when I get home. And then if you're like me, I write that down in a book or in a notes app somewhere. And then I get back to school and I'm in rehearsal. And unless I've made a really intentional effort to try to work a technique in that I've seen, it's easy for me just to go into whatever my default is. Like, oh, okay, there's a pitch issue here, so I'm going to do the same thing that I always do, instead of trying to add new ideas into the mix. And then sometimes, we all, I think even the best of us, we get stuck and we're like, I don't know how to fix this. Like, I know what the problem is. I know that this part of the piece is a problem, and I'm pretty sure I know what's causing it. I just don't have any other ideas about what to do to try. And I think the Cue app is helpful in that there's a lot of really specific techniques that are going to help for a lot of different situations.
Yeah, I can see it being used both in the planning purposes and in real time, in the real rehearsal room, just when you need a resource instead of Googling it or YouTubing it. Hey, I got all this stuff here. Well, I want to ask have you talk about something else, but before we wrap up our conversation, I just want to take a moment to thank our sponsor, the Empowered Music Educator Academy, where we help busy band directors create successful programs, build supportive communities, and feel frickin' amazing by providing productivity and wellness tips that support professional longevity and a healthy life.
You're listening to the Band Director Boot Camp podcast, brought to you by the Empowered Music Educator Academy. At the Academy, we're dedicated to supporting busy band directors like you with practical productivity and wellness strategies. Whether it's through our books, coaching sessions, or GPTs designed specifically for band directors, we've got everything you need to lead a successful music program without burning out. Let us help you achieve excellence in your work without working around the clock.
All right, we are back with Chris Kaatz, and he is here talking to us today about the Cue Rehearsal Techniques App. It's got lots and lots of features. Can we take the last minute or two or a couple minutes here, have you talk us through maybe the rehearsal planner or one of the parts in detail, just a little bit more, so folks out there that are like, wait, I'm not 100% sure what's going on, just another little tangible for us so we get a better idea.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the main feature that we started with was that kind of decision tree process I was talking about beforehand. So anybody who's seen a decision tree flowchart, the app sort of walks you through that, like, which group of musicians you're working with, winds, percussion, strings, maybe it's conducting. There's even a thing in there to help you with your conducting. And then which aspect of your musicianship is the problem? Are you trying to refine? And then which part of your technique do you think is causing that? Boom. At the end of the breadcrumb trail, here's 2 to 4 strategies that are going to help you improve your performance in that regard. But another thing that we've added in, because I think this is another thing that especially music ed students and younger teachers maybe struggle with, is how do you create an effective, detailed rehearsal plan? And so I kind of use this acronym that I talk about in some of my classes, where it's called the SCORE acronym, and it's both score, a pun, and like musical score, but also this idea of kind of a sports analogy, because when you're in rehearsal, I'm a big advocate of being, like on the offensive, where you're trying to score points instead of defensive, because I think it's really easy for us just to hunt for mistakes and kind of turn rehearsal into a game of whack-a-mole instead of let's facilitate some cool artistic things happening instead of just cleaning the band. Like we clean the band so that it can create a great artistic message. So the SCORE acronym stands for section, and the rehearsal planner will walk you all through this. It asks you which sections of the music are you going to rehearse. It guides you to suggest some creative goals. So some things that your artistic things you're trying to facilitate inside of that section of the rehearsal. Some obstacles that you think the students might encounter. Maybe there's a tricky rhythmic passage. Maybe there's something like some really fast scales, that your woodwinds are you're probably going to have to help them woodshed that a little bit. And then R is for rehearsal strategies. So based on the obstacles that you think you're going to encounter, what are some specific rehearsal strategies you can use? And then E stands for evidence. So you can mark down, there's a field for you to mark down, like, these are the objective things I'm listening for that tell me, like, yes, I am getting that chord in tune, or yes, I am facilitating this artistic goal of shaping the phrase to culminate in the beginning of measure 70 the way that I want to. And what we've done, especially with the rehearsal techniques thing, is that if you have some anticipated obstacles, like, okay, my winds are going to struggle with rhythm, we have an option where you can embed cards from the rehearsal techniques tool directly into your rehearsal plan. And then we're just about to roll out the ability for you to export, because you can save the plan locally on your device, but we're working right now on the ability to export the rehearsal plan as a PDF. So you can make this really detailed rehearsal plan, export to PDF, send it out to your staff and all of your student leaders at like a marching band rehearsal. You can show it to your concert band and be like, this is the attack plan for today. Here's the stuff that we think is going to happen. There's spots for you to indicate, starting times and make some notes about everything that you're doing. But it kind of walks you through some things to consider for building an effective rehearsal. But there's a lot and it's pretty customizable because very few of the fields are required, but you can kind of tailor it to how you're going to rehearse your group and what you plan on doing.
Wow. This is massive in the productivity, not just the amount of stuff, but the quality of the work can be higher because you have access quickly to the information that you can use to help others.
Yeah, absolutely.
What a great thing you've come up with. Let's tell our audience, where can they find out more about this? Where do they go?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Cue app is available on the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. And we have a website that gives a little bit of a demonstration of it. If you go to Cue Techniques, that's QUE, like, conducting Cue. That's the whole idea. CueTechniques.com, techniques with an S. There's a demo video that shows you the app, and then there's links on there to take you directly to the App Store to download it as well.
We'll put the link in the show notes for any of you who want to grab it. Yeah, and then grab it. And I watched just the short little demo video. You guys invest 2 minutes and 48 seconds or something like that and check it out. Because if it can save you a lot of time and headache and help you be more efficient and a better teacher, that sounds pretty cool to me. And that's why we do this podcast, is to share those kinds of things. So Chris Kaatz, who's one of the developers or the bright ideas behind this, thank you so much for sharing this with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Lesley, thanks so much for having me on the podcast. And people can find me or Cole Spears or Abigail Ramsey Jones on Facebook. We have a Facebook page for the app as well, Cue Techniques. And we'd be happy to chat with anybody, jump on a Zoom call, show you some features, any of that stuff, or just, any questions we have about the app or anything we can do to help. We're here to be a resource for the people. So thanks so much for having me.
I love the real people behind the so we know, this is legit stuff. So cool.
Absolutely. Well, and Lesley, I want to commend you on, I think this is an awesome resource that you're putting out for the band director community. And I'm impressed with how many episodes you've put out so far, and you've had some really great people on here. So, this is a fantastic resource. It's an awesome community that you're building, and you're doing the Lord's work out here. It's great stuff. So thank you so much for what you're doing.
It takes a village, and all of us are village idiots contributing to the same thing.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks also to all of you listeners who continue to listen to Band Director Bootcamp and make a difference every day in kids' lives through the magic of music education. The work you do matters, and so do you. Join us next time on Band Director Bootcamp for another episode of productivity and wellness tips to make your life a little easier.